Have you ever wondered about the most powerful beings in the universe? Not just any angels, but those closest to the very throne of God, the ones who carry the deepest knowledge and the purest love for the Creator. These beings, known as the Seraphim, are not only the highest order of angels, but they are also the embodiment of divine love and spiritual illumination. Imagine a being so close to God that its entire existence burns with an intense passion for Him. These celestial beings are described as having 6 wings, 2 to cover their faces, 2 to cover their feet, and 2 for flying, each symbolizing humility, reverence, and readiness to serve. But what makes them even more extraordinary is not just their power, but their role as the intermediaries between God and the rest of creation. As we step into the divine narrative, we'll explore the role of the Seraphim in the heavenly hierarchy, how they are depicted in the Bible, and why they are considered the most powerful angels of all. In the book of Isaiah, we see these angels in action, praising God in such a way that their voices shake the very foundations of heaven. And yet, it's not just their power that we should marvel at, but their unwavering devotion, their ability to transmit divine wisdom, and their place in the sacred order of the cosmos. Today, let's dive deeper into the mystery of these awe-inspiring beings and uncover the timeless lessons they offer. Join me on this journey, and together we will discover the divine purpose that lies within the hearts of the Seraphim. The Seraphim, beings of such power and purity that they stand before the very throne of God. These angels are not only the highest in the celestial hierarchy, but they embody something far deeper, the burning, unrelenting love of the Creator for His creation. Imagine for a moment standing in the presence of something so divine that it is beyond words. The Seraphim are these messengers, these guardians of the highest realm, and their very existence is a reflection of God's infinite love. In the book of Isaiah, we encounter the Seraphim for the first time in a vision that is as awe-inspiring as it is humbling. Isaiah, a prophet, is granted a glimpse into the heavenly realm where he witnesses God seated upon a throne, his robe filling the temple. Around him, the Seraphim stand, each of them with 6 wings. 2 wings cover their faces in reverence of the divine holiness they are in the presence of. 2 cover their feet, acknowledging their humble, creaturely nature. And the final 2 are used for flying, ready to carry out the will of God. These beings are described as continuously singing praises to God, their voices so powerful that they cause the doorposts and thresholds of the temple to shake. And what do they proclaim in their song? Holy, holy, holy is the Lord Almighty. The whole earth is full of His glory. This repetition of holy emphasizes the purity and transcendence of God, an attribute so vital that even the Seraphim, the closest angels to God, can only express it in a triad of perfection. But what makes the Seraphim so powerful? It is not just their strength, their fiery nature, or their proximity to God that grants them such authority. It is their love. The name Seraphim itself is derived from the Hebrew word saraph, meaning to burn. This burning is not of destruction, but of devotion, a love so fierce that it consumes them, just as fire consumes the fuel it burns. Their love for God is so pure, so intense, that it ignites their very essence. Their fire is not destructive, it is the light that illuminates all other beings. The power of the Seraphim lies not only in their love for God, but in their unique role as intermediaries. While other angels may act as warriors or messengers, the Seraphim serve as conduits for divine light and knowledge. They are the highest order of angels, but more than that, they are the vessels through which God's wisdom flows into the rest of creation. This isn't just about carrying messages. It's about bringing the very essence of God's wisdom into the lower realms. Through the Seraphim, God's illumination spreads throughout the cosmos, touching not only angels, but also humanity. This divine knowledge doesn't just provide answers, it changes the nature of those who receive it. The seraphim are the ones who transmit God's love, wisdom, and understanding to the world, ensuring that His divine plan is carried out. Take, for example, the way the seraphim purified the prophet Isaiah. In Isaiah's vision, after witnessing the overwhelming glory of God and feeling the weight of his own sin, one of the seraphim takes a burning coal from the altar and touches it to Isaiah's lips, declaring that his guilt has been taken away and his sin atoned for. This act is a powerful symbol of the seraphim's role in cleansing and purifying. Just as fire can refine gold, the seraphim's touch refines and purifies the prophet, preparing him to carry out God's mission. The seraphim's role as purifiers is not limited to Isaiah. They serve as a reminder that through God's divine light and wisdom, purification is possible. No matter how far we may fall, the seraphim, through their fiery love and wisdom, offer us the hope of redemption. It's a reminder that God's love is not just about power, it's about cleansing us, refining us, and drawing us closer to the divine. The power of the seraphim is not just theoretical or distant, it is practical and available to us today. We often think of angels as distant, ethereal beings beyond our reach. But in the case of the seraphim, we are reminded that their role is one of active participation in the divine order. They are not passive observers. They are actively involved in God's work in the world, bringing His light, wisdom, and love to those who need it most. In our own lives, we too are called to be conduits of this divine light, just as the seraphim are. We are called to spread love, to seek wisdom, and to live in a way that reflects the purity and holiness of God. There is a profound lesson here. We are all called to live with a fire in our hearts, a fire that burns with love for God and for others. Just as the seraphim carry the divine light and wisdom, we too are called to carry that light into the world. Our love for God should not be passive. It should burn brightly, purifying and illuminating all that it touches. This love isn't always easy. It requires us to humble ourselves, to acknowledge our own unworthiness, just as the seraphim cover their faces in reverence and humility before God. But this humility doesn't diminish us, it elevates us, just as the seraphim are elevated by their humility before God's throne. But the role of the seraphim doesn't end with their purification of Isaiah. Their burning love for God and their ability to transmit divine wisdom to the lower realms makes them the ultimate role models for how we should approach our relationship with the divine. Just as the seraphim stand ready to serve God, we too are called to be ready, ready to serve, ready to listen, and ready to spread God's light into the world. Now, it's important to recognize that the seraphim are not just symbols of divine power or wisdom. They are also a representation of the perfect relationship between God and His creation. In their ceaseless praise, their intense devotion, and their role as transmitters of divine knowledge, they embody the ideal way that we are meant to interact with God. Their love is not just emotional. It is an active, transformative force that moves through them and into the world. This love is not static. It is dynamic, constantly flowing from the Creator to the created, bringing life, light, and transformation. As we reflect on the seraphim, we are reminded of the power of love and devotion. In their role as intermediaries, they remind us that our relationship with God is not one-sided. It is a reciprocal relationship that calls for our love, devotion, and willingness to serve. The seraphim show us that to be in God's presence, to be near His throne, is not just about power or position, it's about love, unfathomable, burning love for the Creator. And just as the seraphim are agents of God's love and wisdom in the heavenly realms, we too are called to carry that love into the world, illuminating the lives of those around us. Whether in times of joy or in moments of trial, we are called to reflect the seraphim's unyielding love for God. Their example shows us that even in the darkest times, there is light to be found in the love of God. And through that love, we too can find the strength to carry out God's will, just as the seraphim do, by spreading His light and love to all corners of the earth. As we move forward in our exploration of the seraphim, let us remember that their power is not just in their strength or their proximity to God. Their true power lies in their love, the burning, consuming love that they have for God, and the divine wisdom that they share with all who are willing to receive it. It is through this love that we are all transformed, and it is through this love that we are all called to live. The seraphim, in their fiery brilliance, stand at the apex of the angelic hierarchy. These beings are not just powerful in the traditional sense of strength or ability, but in their unparalleled capacity to love and reflect the divine glory of God. Their very nature is the embodiment of a burning passion for God, a love that is so intense it is likened to fire, a fire that purifies and enlightens all it touches. And yet, their power is not just in their love, it is also in their role as transmitters of divine knowledge and wisdom. In the Bible, particularly in the book of Isaiah, the seraphim appear in a vision experienced by the prophet, revealing not just their physical beauty and power, but their purpose. In Isaiah 6, 1-7, the prophet sees the Lord seated on a high and exalted throne, and around him are these mighty beings. Each seraphim has 6 wings, 2 covering their faces in reverence, 2 covering their feet in humility, and 2 used for flying, symbolizing their readiness to serve. They do not simply hover passively around the throne, but they are actively engaged in worship and praise, continuously proclaiming, "Holy, holy, holy is the Lord Almighty. The whole earth is full of His glory." The seraphim's position in the heavenly hierarchy places them closest to God, the highest order of angels, and yet their role is not one of mere worship. Their power lies in their function as the bearers of divine illumination. According to the great Christian theologian Pseudo-Dionysius the Areopagite, the seraphim are the first in the celestial triad, joined by the cherubim and thrones. Together, they form the supra-celestial realm, the realm closest to God, and it is from this place of divine closeness that they transmit God's wisdom to the lower orders of angels and ultimately to humanity. But this transmission of divine light and knowledge isn't just about the intellectual or the abstract. It's deeply practical and profoundly spiritual. When the seraphim bring God's wisdom into the world, it is not merely a matter of conveying information. They are sharing the very essence of God Himself. This wisdom illuminates the hearts and minds of angels and humans alike, guiding them towards a deeper relationship with the divine. The seraphim's power is evident in their role as mediators between God and the created world. Their proximity to God allows them to receive the clearest, most direct understanding of God's will, and it is through them that this understanding is transmitted to the rest of the celestial realm. We often think of angels as messengers, but the seraphim are messengers in the most profound sense. They are conduits of divine wisdom, illuminating not just the intellect, but also the soul. They show us that true wisdom isn't just about knowledge, but about the purity of the heart that is required to receive and transmit that knowledge. Consider the story of Isaiah's purification. In his vision, when he becomes acutely aware of his own sinfulness and the sinfulness of his people, one of the seraphim takes a burning coal from the altar and touches it to Isaiah's lips. The seraphim declares, "See, this has touched your lips. Your guilt is taken away, and your sin atoned for." This act of purification is not just about physical cleanliness, but about spiritual transformation. The seraphim's role is not just to transmit knowledge, but to purify the recipient, to cleanse them of their sin and prepare them to carry out God's will. In our lives today, the seraphim's role as purifiers speaks to the transformative power of divine wisdom. Just as the coal from the altar cleansed Isaiah, so too can the wisdom and love that the seraphim convey purify us. This is a reminder that divine wisdom is not a cold, detached concept. It is something that actively transforms us. It is not enough to simply know God's will. We must also be made pure in order to live it out. The Seraphim's fiery nature and their role as agents of purification remind us that living in the light of God's wisdom requires a heart that is pure, humble, and ready to serve. The Seraphim also embody the idea that divine knowledge is not just for the intellectual elite. It is for everyone, for anyone who is willing to humble themselves and receive it. Isaiah was not a perfect man. In fact, he was painfully aware of his own flaws. And yet, the Seraphim did not hesitate to purify him. This tells us something important about divine wisdom. It is not reserved for the perfect. It is for those who seek it, those who are willing to humble themselves before God, and those who are open to being transformed by it. But perhaps the most striking aspect of the Seraphim's power is their eternal devotion to God. They do not grow weary in their worship. They do not falter in their devotion. Their burning love for God is not just a momentary passion, but a continual, eternal flame. This speaks to the consistency and purity of their commitment. Unlike humans, who often struggle with distractions, temptations, and wavering faith, the Seraphim's love for God is unwavering. They remain fixed on Him, and their passion for Him burns eternally. In their devotion, we find a model for our own relationship with God. In a world filled with distractions and uncertainties, the Seraphim show us what it means to live with undivided devotion. Their worship is not passive, it is active, vibrant, and full of energy. They are not just singing praises from a distance. They are engaged in a dynamic, living relationship with the Creator. This is the kind of relationship that we are called to have with God, one that is marked by a burning love and an active pursuit of His will. As we reflect on the role of the Seraphim in the heavenly order, we are reminded of our own role in the world. We are all called to be bearers of divine light, just as the Seraphim are. But this task is not one we can take on lightly. Like the Seraphim, we must approach God with reverence and humility, acknowledging our own sinfulness and need for purification. We must allow God's wisdom and love to transform us, just as the Seraphim allow His light to burn within them. And we must be willing to serve, to carry that light into the world, just as the Seraphim serve God in all things. Their example calls us to a higher standard of devotion, a deeper love, and a more profound commitment to living out God's will. The Seraphim show us that true power is not about strength or status, but about love. Love that burns with such intensity that it transforms everything it touches. This is the power we are called to carry in the world, and it is through this love that we can truly reflect the glory of God. As we continue our exploration of the Seraphim and their role in the heavenly order, let us remember that their power is not just in their position, but in their unwavering love and devotion to God. May we strive to live in such a way that we too become bearers of that divine light, purifying and illuminating the world around us. As we continue our journey into the celestial realm of the Seraphim, we must now turn our gaze beyond the confines of the heavenly hierarchy and explore how these powerful beings have influenced not only theology and scripture, but also culture, art, and our spiritual practices throughout history. The Seraphim, though deeply rooted in ancient scripture, have left their mark across centuries in ways that continue to shape how we understand divine beauty and holiness. From the towering cathedrals of medieval Europe to the intricate paintings of the Renaissance, these celestial beings have been depicted not only as powerful and awe-inspiring, but also as symbols of purity, enlightenment, and the divine connection between God and humanity. But why do we continue to look to them, centuries after their description in the Bible? What is it about the Seraphim that has captured the imaginations of theologians, artists, and spiritual seekers alike? One reason the Seraphim remain so compelling is their connection to the mystery of divine love. Their love for God is not a passive or fleeting emotion, but a consuming fire that burns with unrelenting intensity. This passion for God is the essence of their being and is what elevates them above all other angels. The seraphim are not just beings of great power, they are beings of deep, transformative love. In their continuous praise of God, we see an example of the kind of devotion that we are all called to mirror in our own lives. This idea of love as a transformative power is central to many of the great works of Christian mysticism. Writers such as St. Augustine and Teresa of Avila have often reflected on how the love of God is not just an abstract concept, but a living, dynamic force that shapes and purifies the soul. The seraphim embody this concept perfectly. Their fire is not for destruction, but for illumination, for bringing the divine light to those below. They show us that true power lies not in dominating or controlling, but in loving and serving. This message has resonated deeply with those who seek to live lives of greater meaning and purpose. In art, the seraphim's influence is undeniable. Artists throughout history have used their fiery imagery to convey spiritual themes of divine illumination and purity. In the works of Renaissance painters such as Raphael and Michelangelo, angels are often depicted as radiant beings, their forms glowing with the light of God. These depictions are not just artistic expressions, but attempts to capture the transcendent beauty and power that the seraphim represent. They are portrayed as beings who bridge the gap between the human and the divine, their beauty and wisdom reflecting the nature of God's holiness. Yet, the presence of the seraphim is not confined to the realms of art and theology. The spiritual life of the believer is deeply shaped by their example as well. In many Christian traditions, the act of prayer and worship is seen as a way of coming into closer communion with God, an act of lifting one's soul up to the divine. The seraphim, in their ceaseless praise and adoration, serve as the ultimate example of this devotion. They show us what it means to truly worship God with all our heart, mind, and soul. Their role as intermediaries between God and humanity reminds us that worship is not just about ritual, but about a deeper connection to the divine presence. As we reflect on the seraphim's place in history, we are invited to see them not just as distant celestial beings, but as models for our own lives. They remind us that, like them, we are called to live lives of devotion and service, to burn with love for God and for others. Their role as bringers of divine wisdom and light also calls us to carry that light into the world, to be bearers of truth, love, and goodness in a world that desperately needs it. But what can we learn from their example in our daily lives? How can we, as modern believers, embody the same love and devotion that the seraphim exhibit before God's throne? The first lesson is the importance of living a life of constant worship. For the seraphim, worship is not a once-in-a-while activity. It is their very essence. In the same way, we are called to make worship a constant part of our lives, not just in the traditional sense of singing hymns or attending church services, but in every action we take. Whether it's showing love to those around us, seeking justice for the oppressed, or living in harmony with God's creation, every act of kindness and devotion can be an act of worship. The second lesson we can learn from the seraphim is the importance of humility. Despite their proximity to God, the seraphim are depicted as covering their faces and feet in reverence and humility. This is a powerful reminder that even those closest to God recognize their own unworthiness. In our own lives, we must remember that humility is the key to true greatness. Just as the seraphim place themselves humbly before God, we too must humble ourselves before the divine, acknowledging our imperfections and seeking purification. Finally, the seraphim teach us the power of transformation. Their fiery love for God is not destructive, it is purifying. Just as fire refines gold, the seraphim's love refines and purifies the souls of all who come into contact with it. In our own spiritual journeys, we too are called to be refined by the fire of God's love. This process of purification is not always easy, but it is necessary for our spiritual growth. The seraphim show us that through love, wisdom, and devotion, we can be transformed into the likeness of Christ. In a world that often feels chaotic and uncertain, the seraphim serve as a beacon of hope and inspiration. Their example calls us to greater heights of devotion and service, to live lives marked by the same burning love and wisdom that they embody. As we continue to reflect on their role in the heavenly order, let us remember that we too are called to be agents of divine light, spreading the wisdom and love of God wherever we go. May the seraphim's eternal devotion to God inspire us to live with the same passion, purity, and commitment in our own lives. As we come to the end of our journey into the world of the seraphim, it's hard not to feel a sense of awe and wonder at these powerful beings who stand closest to God's throne. Their love for the Creator, their fiery devotion, and their role as messengers of divine wisdom have much to teach us about what it means to live a life that is fully devoted to God. It's easy to forget in our busy lives the importance of having a heart that burns with love for God, a love that isn't just passive, but actively seeks to glorify Him in everything we do. The seraphim remind us that living in God's presence is not a static thing, it is a dynamic relationship that calls for our complete devotion and surrender. Their example isn't just about being near God's throne or having 6 wings. It's about their constant burning desire to praise Him, to serve Him, and to share His divine light with the world. As we reflect on their role in the heavenly hierarchy, we begin to understand that their power isn't in their proximity to God or their extraordinary abilities, but in their unwavering commitment to love and serve Him. The seraphim, though powerful, are not about power at all. They are about love, a love that purifies, a love that illuminates, and a love that brings divine wisdom to all who are willing to receive it. In our own lives, we are called to reflect that same love. Just as the seraphim serve as the perfect example of devotion, we too are meant to live lives that reflect God's light. We may not have 6 wings or stand before God's throne, but we do have the capacity to love, to serve, and to bring God's wisdom into our world. Whether we're raising a family, working in our communities, or simply trying to be a source of kindness and light in a world that often feels dark, we are called to carry that same fire of love within us. That is the message of the seraphim. They show us what it means to love God fully, to serve Him with all our heart, and to let that love spread out to those around us. But how do we begin to live in such a way? It starts with humility, just as the seraphim humbled themselves in the presence of God. We must recognize that we are imperfect, that we need God's purification, and that our love for Him must be constantly renewed. It is a lifelong journey, one that requires us to keep our hearts and minds open to God's wisdom, to allow His love to burn away the impurities in our souls, and to be ready to serve Him whenever and however He calls. The seraphim show us that true power isn't about domination or control. It's about love. When we live with that kind of love, we become channels for God's wisdom and light, just as the seraphim do. Their fiery passion for God isn't something that should overwhelm us. It should inspire us to live more fully for Him, to set our hearts on fire with love, and to take that love into the world. Their role as intermediaries between God and the rest of creation reminds us that we are all called to be vessels of God's love and wisdom, sharing His truth and grace with everyone we meet. Now, as we finish this video, I want to encourage you to reflect on the seraphim's example in your own life. How can you live with a greater devotion to God? How can you love Him more fully serve him more wholeheartedly, and bring his light into the world. The Seraphim are not just figures in a distant heavenly realm. They are reminders for us, here and now, to live in the presence of God's love and to let that love guide everything we do. If you found this video insightful, I encourage you to hit the like button and share it with others who might benefit from it. There's so much we can learn from the Seraphim, and by sharing this message, we can spread their light and love to even more people. And if you haven't already, don't forget to subscribe to the channel. We've only scratched the surface of the mysteries of the Bible, and there's much more to explore. By subscribing, you'll stay connected as we continue to dive deeper into these divine mysteries, uncovering truths that can change the way we live, love, and serve. Thank you so much for being a part of this journey. May the example of the Seraphim inspire you to live with a heart that burns with love for God, to seek His wisdom, and to carry His light wherever you go. Until next time, may you be blessed and filled with the divine love that the Seraphim so beautifully reflect.